So, ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, welcome to another episode of none other than Community Gems. Community Gems, Community Gems, Community Gems. So, Community Gems is a series that I started that is specifically about hearing from the community about your opinion on things, hearing from you about topics that are related to music, but you get to be the main speaker, right? I know it says Curtis King TV, but I'll be your main speaker every day. I want you to be the main speaker when I ask you questions, but I want to get different perspectives on it. And today's topic is quite the interesting one because it has to do with album sales. And let me tell you what my train of thought was on this. So, about a month ago, an artist named Sweetie released an album. It was before I went on my hiatus, so I was still on social media and I saw it. She released an album and she has millions and millions and millions of followers. She used to be with Quavo from the Migos. And she went on this crazy press run before her album dropped, just like most artists who are associated with the major label in that ecosystem. She went on a crazy media run. And let me see if I can pop up this. Let me see if I can pop this up real quick. I think I can. I'm going to pop this. The album sales. So as you can see on the thumbnail, the conversation was that she only did 2,000 copies. She only sold 2,000 copies of her music. And that became, of course, social media had a field day with that. That, of course, was an opportunity to kind of, down the artist. And I know that Sunny Digital in particular probably had an issue with what she, had an issue with what she said in her press run, while, of course, the folks over at Migos were mourning Takeoff passing away. And so she said some things that were just bad timing, but let's not make it about her. This is truly about the repercussions of when an album drops, especially from someone who is a public artist, a signed artist. There's a bit of a reaction, even a backlash, if the sales don't add up to what their larger than life image projects. And it got me thinking, not even just because of her, she just kind of like sparked the idea. Why are album sales public to begin with? Who benefits from album sales being public? Now, the general answer would be record labels, right? Because these are their products. This is an opportunity for them to hang up plaques on the wall, for them to be able to champion success stories of these artists that they have signed. It's an opportunity for them to start making money back off of their initial investment, since we know that record labels are basically bank loans in themselves. And with that said, I started digging deeper because I'm like, there's always a surface level of who benefits from it. And then there's a deeper level that has to do with the business of it. And I started thinking about all the entities that benefit from the numbers being up, right? I started thinking about Billboard.com. I started thinking about SoundScan. I started thinking about specifically A&Rs and PRs who are in charge of promoting this album, right, before it drops and trying to maximize the amount of sales possible. So then I got to thinking, well, if it's really for their benefit, and so they can showcase accolades, and obviously we know these things can be bought. We've heard people document that many a times. Why does it need to be public? It feels like And it's crazy because I saw on Joe Budden podcast, he was talking about how when an artist starts talking about issues they have with their label, some crazy stuff happens, and out of nowhere, the artist gets no support on their next project. And it doesn't matter how big of an artist it is, like a Post Malone, his album dropped and it was a whisper, right? Across the board, social media promotion, all that good stuff. And fans really, I didn't recognize how important it is to certain people, right? I don't want to just put younger folks into that group, but it's so many people that I feel like make their judgments based upon what those first week sales look like. And it's even beyond just what the sales are, but what other people are reacting to those sales. Whenever the people are reacting and saying like, oh, damn, this person fell off. Oh, damn, this person don't got no pull. They ain't got no clout. And that is the metric in which people judge these artists. That has influence on other people who are like, well, damn, I heard really nobody talking about it, so it must not be that amazing. Then it got me thinking about folks that I actually know, right? Let me pull up a tweet that I didn't see, but I had to go ahead and run a Google search for it because I haven't been on social media. So I saw a tweet that popped up, and it had to do with my guy Ab Soul, and it bothered me. It bothered me how the reaction was to this particular tweet that's by one of those Twitter accounts that their main objective is just to report the facts, right? Or close to the facts. So this is what I saw. Make sure you can see it on your screen. This is what I saw. Okay, so if you can see that on the screen right now, it says that my guy Ab, who released a phenomenal freaking album, named Herbert, that documents a very challenging time in his life, music that you would not want to miss. This is the list of those who sold that week. First week sales for Young Dolph, 31K. Little Durk and OTF, 25K. Suicide Boys and Germ, 21K. And they said Ab-Soul is outside the top 50, so he sold less than 19K. And then the first comment you see down here is solo album fire though. But I could only imagine, this is in a Reddit post, I can only imagine the folks having a field day with, dang, bro, you was on the Joe Budden podcast and we had an interview with Charlamagne and that's all you can do, as if they've ever accomplished anything themselves. And so it got me thinking once again, why are those numbers public? And if those numbers are public, doesn't that put an artist at a disadvantage, since the labels ultimately are going to report what they're going to report, and whatever narrative that they have for these artists, if they don't want an artist to be relevant anymore, if they don't want an artist to be a priority anymore, and they want to move somebody out of position and put somebody new in, right? We've heard of industry plants and whatnot. If they want to put somebody a little bit more manageable in, it's very easy for them to do that. All they got to do is just hold off on the promotion and not even give it that much to them. So I'm with you, D Payton, I'm with you. And I really want to hear from you guys, your opinion on this. Album sales don't seem to matter unless you're independent. Well, when you're independent, my question is, why do they matter at all to anybody who's not handling the behind the scenes work, to anybody who's not trying to measure how effective their campaign is marketing wise? How is that beneficial to someone who was listening? Now, for somebody like myself who campaigned to get as many iTunes sales as I could, right, from my audience, so that we had an independent moment to be really, really proud about something we accomplished, I understand to a certain degree that wanting to be public. But then I got to thinking, like, it just gives an opportunity for people who have no idea about how this thing works to have an opinion and then base your value around that, or your relevancy around that. That's a good hot term right now. But I don't know. That's sort of my perspective on it. I see we got a guest in here, and I want to talk to Ricky Adams. Hopefully you're ready. And I want to hear your feedback in the chat as well. So let's go ahead and bring our first guest in. What do you guys think, though? What's your opinion? I want to make sure that my chat is updating as much as this one is. I'm about to bring Ricky Adams in, though. I don't think this should be public. I think that there was a time where they were a lot more relevant and there was a necessity for it. But I don't think this should be public. I think it should be, let's sit here and let's really see what the results were of our massive campaign for this project and see where we need to pivot so that we do have better results next time. And then the fact that these can be bought makes it seem like, well, what's the value ultimately of them to begin with? I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to bring a guest on and I'm going to see. Hopefully I can bring you here on screen, but we're going to see right now. We're going to see right now. Hopefully you're still in here. Are you here? Are you here, Ricky Adams? And for those who are wondering, the link is up there in the chat. It's the first pinned post up there. So join me in this conversation. Because you know what the follow-up to this is going to be. If album sales are made public or not made public, excuse me, in much the same way that the like button is not made public, right? Well, at least for some Instagram accounts, the like button's not made public because of how it can affect the mental health of the creators or mental health or even the need to want to even create more, right? Oh, Ricky's not coming in. Okay, well, the Zoom link is open, but what are we saying here? So though anybody who wants to jump in here on the Zoom link and we can hear from you, we would love to hear from you. But let me hear what you're saying here in the chat right now. So Viral Beats says, yeah, they go off social media numbers now more than anything. Record sales are nothing in comparison to an actual community. 1,000%. I'm with you. And I think that you don't have to worry about the numbers when you know what it really is, right? When you know that you're going to go to certain cities as an independent artist and you know that you're going to have a certain pull and it's more than what you had last time, you get to measure your success with different metrics. But if it's just the sale of a product that doesn't sell the same as it once did, and people are able to take that and manipulate your value and manipulate your influence by a metric like that, it's beyond me. It's beyond me. Unique from Nine Doors says, I don't think album sales don't matter at all. No one really buys albums. It's all streaming. And who determine how many streams is a sale? That's a good question. That is an awesome question, actually. Not question. That's an awesome answer. I don't think album sales don't matter at all. I'm with you. I do think that those numbers are important. I just argue, are those numbers more important to the public or to those who are part of the creation process and the team that created it? I just would hate, and I've been listening to the homie Ab-Soul's album all month since it dropped, right? Half the month, whatever. And I'm just like, this is such amazing music, and it by no means is it slept on. It's doing crazy numbers on streaming, and that's beautiful. But I would hate for somebody to be discouraged by music simply because it doesn't match up with what your expectations of it should be. So, and then also, if we're going to make that public, here's playing devil's advocate. If we're going to make that public, why don't we make merch sales public? Like, why is that not public information? It's a measurement of your success and your influence, right? Why don't we make how much ad spend that these labels did? Why don't we make that public? Facebook forces you to make it public, how many ads that you have up, not to spend, but it makes you, it displays it. There's a way that you can access any Facebook page and see how many ads they're running at one point in time. It's open public information. So it's like you see the artist and they have to basically expose everything from their art, their words, their personal stories that influence the music, and then their numbers. That just puts so many artists at such a terrible disadvantage, at least in that ecosystem, at such a terrible disadvantage, because it's like, damn, I get to say you're not relevant anymore. I get to say you're not relevant anymore because look at what the people are saying now in response to it, right? And there was a second part of that one. Unique from 99 Doors said, no one really buys albums. It's all streaming, and who determines how many streams is a sale? I've always had an issue with those metrics too, because who were the people who sat in the room and decided this is the amount of streams necessary to be platinum? This is the amount of streams that are necessary to be whatever. Like, these are literally man-made numbers. Zooming out, these are man-made numbers, and you're able to manipulate somebody's influence. And I feel like, to a certain degree, this is part of the. Okay, I'm about to turn you off, Siri, because you're about to piss me off today. I feel like, to a certain degree, this is also why hip hop is such a trendy genre and such a finicky fan base. Is because look at the metrics that things are based upon. It reminds me a lot of how people treat athletes, right? Athlete can have a phenomenal 10 years and then have one season like what Russell Westbrook had last year, and then they're asking, what is the value of even having this person? This person can go from having a $50-60 million contract to now it has to be renegotiated to a veteran's minimum at $5 million, $6 million, $7 million. And I feel like the same thing happens to artists because of that whole relevancy conversation. But who's to say who is relevant and who is not relevant? It seems like it's the labels that get the opportunity to dictate that. And it's an unfortunate thing because I feel like there's a lot of artists that get discouraged from that. And there's a lot of artists that stop creating after that. And I just like, how much more music do you think we would have? How much more amazing music do you think we would have if artists weren't as concerned about sales as they are? If they just made the music that they wanted to make, which is why being independent is just such a no-brainer to me. But I think about that. I'm like, what kind of music would you make if you knew that you could make anything and it wasn't contingent upon sales or dependent upon sales? Pearl, album sales only show who bought the album, not who streams. Yes, exactly what Unique said. Absolutely. I'd argue people buy albums from their favorite artists from platforms like Bandcamp. Well, you're not arguing with me. I agree. People do buy it. And I think that's the beautiful thing. But once again, the independent artist doesn't have to make their numbers public. And if that is something that can have a negative influence amongst the public's decision of whether or not to check for your album, I just think it's, in my opinion, it feels like it's an unfair place to put creatives. Pearl Manhattan said they are only important to the record executives for the bottom line. The artists and musicians get peanuts compared to the sales. We've heard that story over and over again. Ab-Soul's album was a great way to cap off the year. I agree. And I would hate for somebody to sleep on that. As a DIY expert, I would think you would want to know as much as possible. It gives us more accessible information to analyze. I would say this, man. I do want to know the numbers. I want to know every number I can, every metric that I can, right? I wish that, and somebody, if you know this information is out there, please let me know. But I would love to see the day that Spotify gives me retention numbers by the song. Bandcamp does it, where they tell me where people stop listening to a song, where they tell me, kind of like how YouTube is. You tell me where somebody repeated a part of a song, right? Maybe they repeated a verse. You know what I can do with that information? But it's my belief that these entities, these companies, don't take us serious. They don't look at us as real businessmen and businesswomen. And I know a lot of folks out there give us a bad rap, right? And this applies to music producers too, because we have beat tapes, right? Obviously, our careers are not more dependent upon it, but the artists that we're supplying beats for, the artists that we're working for, these are real concerns that they have. And so I think having these conversations could not only alleviate their stress, but also our way to articulate that to them. I think that's important. Mon dog, yeah, I feel you. I never even check my streaming sales. I'm just happy to make my music available so people can listen. It's not like the 90s or early 2000s. I agree. I remember there was an artist that he was a really big R&B artist at one point in time, and I had a buddy that was his videographer, and he always told me, he said he had this thing where he preferred not to check his bank account. I don't think this is a wide range philosophy that all of you should take, but he preferred not to check his bank account. By the way, the Zoom link is up there and it's open, so come join me if you want to talk on here live. He said that he doesn't check his bank account. He said that if he feels the need to constantly check his bank account, he knows that he has been doing something irresponsible. He's like, as long as he's making responsible decisions, he has nothing to worry about. And I think a lot of people are like that with their analytics. It's not easy to look at your analytics and recognize that you have been doing some things inaccurately. You've been doing some things wrong. It's not easy to look at your BeatStars numbers and recognize that, that $100 promotion that I did at $200, it's not quite hitting the way that I thought it was going to hit, right? It's a lot easier to just be like, well, I put up a $50 ad and I got $50 back, so I guess it was a win. It's a lot easier to just operate like that. But that's not all of us. I think all of us are at different levels, and I think a lot of these companies, they don't take us for the entrepreneurs that we are. They make those tools available to people who are folks on our team, right? That are like masters at marketing, masters at studying analytics, but they don't make those metrics that we need, that we can actually do something with for us, but yet the sales are public. And my thing is this, even if you don't across the board make it private for everybody, why not give the option? Why not give the option? You give every other artistic freedom from the creative of what kind of album cover to have, how they want to spell their songs, right? How many songs they want to have. But that one thing is something that's non-negotiable. I think it'll shift, but I think we got to ask those. Album sales are, King Raja said, album sales are still important because it's more of a commitment now, because subs get you everybody. You are actually investing in your favorite artists because subs get you everybody. Could you elaborate a little bit on that one? I want to know what you mean when you say the subs. Can I read that? Am I reading that wrong? Album sales are still important because it's more of a commitment now, because subs get you everybody. Elaborate a little bit. Mr. Tin Man 405. I remember doing CD and tape sales on the street in person, actually meeting fans and support system. And when you were doing hand-to-hand, were you doing inventory? Or was it more of the experience of, I'm glad to be out here sharing my music with human beings, connecting with them, having conversations with the ones who are interested, because everybody ain't interested. I remember taking my CD that I burnt at home, going out to a college that I was going to, Cerritos College, and walking around dressed as my album cover. It was terrible. It was cheesy. But I was dressed as my album cover, and I was trying to strike up conversations. But that rejection built thick skin. That rejection made me understand people don't resonate with these type of things. Also, talking to these human beings gave me an opportunity to say, they're not all part of my demographic. I thought because they were in college, I was in college, the topics were college related, maybe that would be something that would be a connection point. It wasn't necessarily a connection point. So, yeah, that's it's a different experience. Can you hide your numbers on these music platforms? Not that I know of, but I could be wrong. Pearl says, I like to see how much out of the profit went to expenses such as advertising, equipment, studio time, etc. If you're going to show the profit, you got to show the expenses. Pearl, these are the kind of conversations they don't want to have public. They don't want us having these kind of conversations. You can't tell the truth. People are not interested in the truth. people are interested in the fiction, right? The entertainment aspect of it. But it's the absolute truth. If you are going to make an argument that no, we need to make sales public because this is transparency, in the name of transparency, then why not make all these things transparent? Why not make the contracts transparent? These are public figures. If the government can make an ex-president's tax information or tax, the tax returns public, why can't these things be public? And why is it such a backlash when an artist does release their contract? Right? Minus if there's like private information and things that are going to compromise the privacy, right? And if it's an NDA and you sign that, you shouldn't be doing that. But yes, if we're talking about transparency and we're talking about making sure that the clout matches the actual proof, that the proof is matching, then transparency all the way would be amazing, I think. Vinyl Enthusiast said, I feel like even having 100 monthly listeners on Spotify, which might seem nothing to most, to me, that's 100 reasons to share my art. See, and I wish more folks felt like that. But I understand that the majority of us are not like that. I'm like that. I get excited about starting from a place, even if it's starting from scratch, and figuring out how to build up what I have going on, right? I don't mind starting over a beat store. I've had 3 or 4 different beat stores that I started over and over again. By the way, if you're just joining us, the topic at hand is, should album sales be private or should they be public? Also, how about we double the ante? We up the ante. Should streaming numbers be public or should they be private? There's a Zoom link up there in the chat if you want to come join me and you want your voice to be heard and we can go ahead and ask you questions. We would love for you to join in this conversation. Plus, it gives me a little bit break from talking. Yeah, my dog, I would hate, imagine, I just keep saying it, imagine all the music we wouldn't get if people were obsessed over, if everybody, I should say, was obsessed over the sales of their project and being embarrassed by what the sales were. I just think we're in a different space. I know that they don't make artists as rugged as they used to, right? I know they don't make artists who are like, I don't give a damn about themselves, I do whatever I want. I know they don't make those like that. Not as common. I get it. We're in a different time, though. A time where these things have a direct relationship with people's mental health. Let me actually bring this up really quick, too, since we're on the topic of this. And this is the thumbnail. Let me go ahead and grab this real quick. I'm going to grab this real quick because this is the thumbnail, and I want to make sure we stay in tune with that. And I want to keep reading your responses about this. But as I recall, as you may or may not recall, the thing that inspired this whole train of thought was when the Sweetie album dropped and there was a backlash because she had millions and millions of followers on her social media, but she sold, quote unquote, only 2,000 copies. And because of that, there was a lot of ridicule to go around. And folks who were like, I mean, the math ain't adding up. Namely Sunny Digital, who has something to say about it. So I'm going to pull this tweet up really quick because I want you to see this. There we go. Boom. All right. So, minus the guy on the right-hand side. Actually, no, that's not there. I'm going to pull this up real quick. Hold on. Let me see. Let me pull this up. Thought I had it already loaded. No worries. All right, there it goes. There it goes. All right, I'm going to pull this up right now for you to check out. All right, boom. Bring this back in here. Here we go. Oh, we got somebody in here. Sweet. All right, let's talk to you in just a second. So this is the tweet. He's talking about This is Sunny Digital talking about Sweetie. He says 13 million followers, hundreds of thousands of likes on all pictures, but albums sold less than 2,000 copies. That's crazy. The math ain't adding up. I get what he's saying. Believe you me, I get what he's saying because I love when the cap is exposed. I love when things are exposed, right? When you see that everything that shine ain't gold. I look, I'm one for that. I love lifting the veil up and being like, all right, it's not the real deal. But we know what it is. She is not ugly to look at. She's a beautiful woman. And those thousands of likes, those millions of followers, you think that they all came there? You think they all came there for music? And do you think that all of them are going to account for her album sales because they find her attractive? Like, she literally projects that out. She puts that out there like supermodel status, right? But this idea that this amount of followers means that you should have this amount of pull, that math ain't adding up to me. I don't know. What do you guys think? Private would definitely be private. It would definitely make it more about the craft. And you know what, too, Falot? And I would love to talk to you, and I'm gonna get here to talk to Unique real quick. I feel like if it was private, I feel like a lot of the art would change. I feel like it would be the same thing as the TikTok algorithm. The TikTok algorithm is one of the first ones that wasn't built on you have to be a household name in order for us to push the algorithm in your direction, in order for us to push your content out there, right? You don't have to be a celebrity to be a face of the platform. That was one of the first ones, and I feel like that's where society and the marketing and the branding of these businesses that are social media influenced, right, that have influencers on them, I feel like that's the direction that things are heading in. And I feel like this has got to be at some point in time something that happens. It's just, the record business is always going to be the latest to it. So, all right, let's talk to Unique Contrail. See what you got to say. Hopefully this Zoom thing works because it wasn't working earlier. But I'm going to try to bring you in here. Hello. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you. Let me try to get you here on the screen, but they can hear you. The folks can hear you. So first and foremost, what is your name? What should I refer you as?
Oh, this is Unique from 99 Doors.
Okay, Unique from 99 Doors. Okay, cool. Unique, yeah. Man. Was good to finally put a voice to it. I appreciate all the support and you just being a solid member in this community. But what is your point of view of this topic? Should album sales and even to a certain degree, should streaming numbers be made public? What does Unique say?
Honestly, I feel like especially album sales nowadays it shouldn't be public.
Okay.
Streaming numbers, I can understand to a point because streaming is the way that we listen to our music nowadays.
Right.
So I can understand streaming numbers. Album sales, though, like I was saying in my post earlier, my comment earlier, we judge everything by streams, and who decide how many streams equal to one sale? That always was confusing to me. And I was like, how can you say this person sold X amount of albums to go gold and diamond? I'm like, is they holding everybody to the same standard? I don't know. Because everything is done behind the scenes.
It's done behind the scenes. I agree. It's done behind the scenes in a very masterful and very strategic way. Because the things that stay behind the scenes feel like those should be the things that are made public and be the front facing, but it's not good for the business model, right? If we knew that this number one album that came, like, and it's crazy because nobody is above it. Even how they talk about Kendrick's last album, and I thought that was a masterpiece, up and down. Like, there's no even debate about it. Nobody's making music like that, from the production to, and they even did Kendrick like that. And I'm watching different podcasts that are talking about how that was, probably his first flop. And I'm like, wait, what? So let me ask you this, though, just playing devil's advocate. Why do you feel that it's okay though for the streaming numbers to be public. What's different for you in that?
It's the pretty much the major way that we listen to music nowadays.
Okay.
It's not like back in the day, album sales made sense because we bought CDs and everything. Now streaming numbers is the main way that we listen to music. Apple Music, Spotify. If you add those up, that's your social proof. Can't even
Right.
talk right now.
You good?
But
You
that's your
good?
social proof that people actually listening to your music. That's what you can showcase. It's the same as like your followers on TikTok, YouTube, everything else. You had that for your social proof.
Right.
So I definitely understand why streaming number you need some type of numbers to show. But I feel like album sales is just an out of date system, like a lot of systems that the major record labels use. But I feel like a lot of their stuff is out of date that they're using.
And they getting away with murder, man, because the fact that you get to dictate whether or not an artist is heard from or even supported. Because here's something I learned firsthand. These looks that you see artists get in that other ecosystem has very little to do with what metrics we use, right? They have a lot to do with who's their PR, what's the PR's current relationship with the outlet, and are they picking up calls? So you could have an artist that is one of the biggest names, but if there's something else going viral or something else that is a bigger a priority, don't matter how big that artist's name is, unless they have a PR that has a relationship, that has a foot in the door, that can leverage that conversation and get the other person on the phone, you'd be surprised how many people get said no to. So knowing that that game is rigged, it's just crazy to me how much that is still sort of a tool used in public to dictate the value of an artist. Do you ever find yourself being influenced by an album not performing well in the sales? Have you ever felt like maybe it discouraged you from wanting to actually get the project or listen to it?
Me personally, no, but I do know people that actually allow that to dictate if they listen to the album or not. They will let that decide if the album good or not. Because I know people that I would play a good album for them. Like a lot of people say it's good, but because the numbers and the sales low, or because nobody's talking about it, they would say that album wasn't good, or they were like, it must have not been that good because nobody's talking about it. So yes, I understand like a regular listener, like everyday person, if nobody's talking about it or if the numbers not adding up in their eyes, yes, everybody gonna talk about it. That's just like when I can't remember her name, but she did a show and everybody was talking about her stage and everything, how it was little and how she only had like 3,000 people in the crowd and stuff like that.
Was it Coyle
pretty
Ray?
much downplaying? I think so.
I believe, yes, because she did a show, I believe, in Houston, and then people were taking Instagram. Like, I don't think, and maybe people do or do not know. It was Coyle Ray, because they were like putting up the Instagram phone, or not the Instagram, but they were on Instagram doing like video panning, and they were like, look, ain't nobody's even like making any noise for her. You hold the power of whether or not an artist is going to eat, because this game is built so much upon relevance. You hold that power as a fan, because all it takes is for somebody to retweet that, and it to go down this endless funnel, and it becomes viral. And all of a sudden, all hip hop is posting it. Shade Room, media, you know what I mean? All these different outlets, and it's like that's all it takes. And then all of a sudden, that person that you felt like this one day about them, like they couldn't be touched, and then the next day you look at them like, dang, I didn't realize it was that bad for them. And then now they got to play the PR game to try to get back in the good graces of the public. I'm just like, that's the kind of stuff that makes the other ecosystem so unappealing. So let me ask you this. What advice would you give to folks who are still heavily influenced by it? What have been some things that you have seen, or that maybe you wouldn't have perhaps seen had you not changed your perspective on it?
Me personally, it was never a numbers game with me, especially when it comes to like album sales. listens a little bit more on like Spotify and stuff. I do play that game a little bit when it comes to my music, but mostly I create music that I enjoy listening to. I
Hmm.
always felt like if you create music that you enjoy listening to, you will find somebody else that's going to enjoy listening to it also. If
Facts.
you just chasing the numbers and chasing what's relevant at that time, you're gonna be always chasing it, always chasing behind it, and you're always gonna be following behind because it's always changing. Because people are gonna do what they want to do and make the music that they want to make, and that's what's gonna catch on because people are gonna relate to what they saying in their music. So you might as well just make what you're gonna make,
Hmm.
and hopefully somebody catch on to it. If you can find one person that's gonna listen to it, you can find 10 others to listen to it. You can
Talk
find
about it.
10, you can find 100.
Talk about it. Talk about it. Hey, well, we got to put the round of applause for you. We appreciate that point of view. Genuinely appreciate them community gems. Unique 99. Appreciate you, fam.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Good to talk to you finally.
You too. You have a good one.
You too. You too. Absolutely. So, a lot of points, a lot of valid points, I think, were made. You have to, like, we know that. I'm talking to the congregation. We are DIYers. We understand the value of just putting in the work, regardless of what the response is, right? I don't care how large my platform gets. A dud post is a dud post on any platform that I post on. And if it falls flat, it falls flat. And I'm faced with the same questions, the same self-esteem issues, the same insecurities that I had when it was zero numbers, when I was on MySpace way back when it was on MySpace and I was dealing with those numbers and I was like, man, don't nobody want to listen to nothing I got going on. You're faced with that, except the only thing that has changed is your maturity level and where you put your value. So I wish I was as strong as our guest, Unique 99 Doors on that, but I can't even I can't even lie to you. Numbers have been something that have been like very important to me. But as I get older, as I understand like the real why of why I'm doing this, it doesn't become as important. We got another guest in here, Swift Dreamer, and I want to go to the chat, but I want to keep this going because this is Community Gems, and I want to make sure that we get an opportunity to talk to our friend. Hello, Swift Dreamer. Is that you?
Yes, it is. Good evening.
Good evening. How you doing, Swift?
I'm doing all right. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, fam. Happy New Year. Happy holiday and all that. How's your first few days of the new year been?
I can't complain, just getting situated, some minimal life changes here and there. Pretty exciting. Things I'm adjusting to. Can't really complain.
There it is. There it is. So the topic at hand is, should album sales be public information? And you say, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, like personally, I'm like conflicted on that.
Okay.
Because I feel like I know how things are now and like how beneficial, showing those types of numbers could be beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
And on one side, I feel like just showing numbers in general just kind of messes up things for everyone. I guess it's kind of like the social media aspect of it, like how likes can mess up someone's mental if they're seeing other people, getting a certain amount and they feel like that's the new goal, and it could really like mess up people from like either achieving something or feeling like a failure, or it causes them to try to conform in a certain way to try to break down, make things more formulaic. But even if we're taking into consideration how things are now, I would still say showing album sales wouldn't be beneficial, just because of how the world is right now, as far as like how music is consumed, the streaming. It's just going to make the numbers look worse than they are. And if you are trying to play that game of like, you know, trying to get the notoriety and the and if you're still trying to get the record labels for whatever reason, or like, you know, maybe if it could translate somehow to like sponsorships, maybe that could be leverage in that type of way.
Right.
But like, did you have something to
Well,
contribute to that?
No, you saying a lot of good things. I didn't want to interrupt you, but so where's the conflict? Because you said you're conflicted. So where's that level of conflict for you? Because you're making a lot of valid arguments for why they should be private. Why are you conflicted though?
I'm conflicted because I feel like those numbers in general, I would erase all those types of stats from the public eye. I wouldn't make it too readily important. I feel like there's too much of a focus on it. And even though like I feel like, even me, I feel like I don't really care about the numbers so much.
Right.
But like, I feel like they're subconsciously, it might affect how I consume some things. Like if I'm being real with myself, and I try not to do that.
I'm since you being very transparent, I'm gonna be transparent. The hardest thing for me is when a new song drops or a music video drops, and to not look at the comments as I'm watching or listening to the song. Swift, it's so challenging for me. Is it the same way for you?
Yes, like, and I mean, not gonna lie, sometimes those be the most entertaining parts, depending on the music video.
Facts,
you know,
facts. But and the difficulty, because people are like, well, why is that difficult? The difficulty is that I could see myself being influenced in real time, because now you're making me pay attention to things that I didn't see before. Like, oh, bro's facial expressions in this video are like really goofy. Like I can't even take it serious. I wasn't even thinking about the man's face. But now that you said it, you make a pretty valid point. So that's the hardest thing for me, fam, is like trying to not fall into that. But that's my point, is that if that is influential, everything's influential. The numbers we see. And so if we make the argument for even the numbers being public, or not even public, there still need to be access to these numbers. I think it should be the same way that they do these industry only emails. They have industry only emails, folks that are only a part of the industry that are getting certain emails. It may be through a label, but they're only a part of this email newsletter that is going amongst folks who are professionals, right? It's where they used to send press releases through. If you have that, then that's where the numbers should. But I feel like you can't even do that, because who can you trust in such a shady industry? Who could you trust to not disclose that number? And then you're the only one that's had your numbers disclosed for the last X amount of months because they're no longer public. So I feel like they should not be public to anybody unless you want them to.
Right. Like I feel like just in general, like if it was possible, just the numbers just be like no one gets those types of numbers. And at the same time,
even including the artists?
Like even like the artist, like
wow,
it's just like
I wasn't even thinking that deep into it. That's crazy. Why not the artist? Should that not be a measurement of the success of what their work, their promotional work is, right? Because I think Pearl brought the point up about the ad dollars, right? You want to see where your ad dollars have gone. Well, how do you measure that? Since we're not talking about the success of music, we're not talking about the creative aspect, we're just talking about the business side of it, right? If you measure the success of a business investment by the results, which is a lot of businesses out here, small businesses, corporations, if you measure it by that and you don't have access to the results, how do you know that money that you spent for those ads went to the right place? You know what I'm saying? Like that's where it gets tricky for me. It gets tricky for me there.
Like maybe it's something I would have to like ponder a little bit more about.
You see why I asked it? You see why I asked it?
Yeah, I know. No, it was a great point to bring up, Curtis. So definitely a good point. I guess where I came from that train of thought was a little bit more towards like how before, the digital age became like the what took over the world. Like,
Right.
it was more or less, more about gatekeepers more than it was about
Absolutely. And
like,
that's the real
the noise.
And to me, that's the real issue here. The real issue is the gatekeepers, first of all, being able to gatekeep, but being able to use metrics that are none of the public's business to determine, you know what? I didn't like the way that this artist talked to me the last time I was in a meeting with him. How about we underserve the folks that we usually serve that really move these records, right? How about we don't deliver it to our usual? How about we deliver it to only 5,000 of our email list? Like, I'm just throwing like random stuff. That's not a real thing. I don't think it is.
Right.
But imagine, you know what? Let's not send the full email blast out to notify people. Let's give them a few interviews and make them think we're doing something. Like, you have too much power, and there's not enough transparency to know what's actually being done. Now, I remember Chameleon Air was talking about how he hired Jay-Z's tax auditor to see how much money was not being paid to him that the labels were hiding from him, and it was millions of dollars that he didn't know that he had access to. So in that sense, I'm like, yeah, but it's so much that you cannot get information on. And I think that's dangerous.
Yeah, that's why it's like, it's always like a give and take. There's always going to be like the pros and cons of certain scenarios. Even if we don't have access to the numbers, like, yeah, it would probably be a lot easier to be taken advantage of in certain ways. And then, if we have enough access to, or too much access to it, then it's influencing in different ways. So it's like, I guess it's more or less figuring out which scenarios are you really okay with. And like, I don't know, like
it's not an easy question, bro. It's not an easy question by any measure, but I think you tackled that one really nicely, Swift Dreamer, and I appreciate getting your feedback. I look forward to hearing more from you, man. It's always good to tap in with you, bro.
Hey, I appreciate it, Curtis. This is a perfect platform for it. I really hope you do more in the future.
For sure.
I'm definitely going to be tuning in as much as I can. And like, I love having these type of producer conversations.
Yeah, it's needed. I mean, I feel like nobody else is having them, and I feel like we're all DIYers. That is my brand. That is what I push. Just ownership, DIY. Like, you see folks around me, like, on my wall over here, well, it used to be on this side. It's on this side now. I had Nipsey Hussle and I got Kobe. And these are folks who, when they unfortunately passed away, they left generational wealth to their families. And a lot of that had to do with ownership. A lot of that had to do with, no, I'll take my business elsewhere, no matter how big of a brand you are, and I'll figure it out on my own. And I feel like there's not a lot of content. There's a lot of entertainment content, which I'm all for. I like to create some every once in a while. There's not a lot of independent DIY, or what I call it. It's my tribe. That's why I consider you, Swift, DIYers who are having access to information and asking questions that other ecosystem, the major label, they're not going to ever ask these questions, because if you do that, you stand out. And if you stand out, it's not a good thing. It's a dangerous game you're playing.
And I feel like you're definitely one of the community leaders that are bringing forth and bringing up these new ideas that people can follow and have more motivation within themselves. And even with there was something I was gonna say, but it just slipped my mind.
You good?
I was gonna add on to what you just said, but it slipped my mind. But it's all good.
It's all good. Well, Swift Dreamer, I appreciate you tapping in, and man,
I hope you have a happy New Year. I hope
to you.
Your family your family is doing well. Everything is there. I hope everything is good there.
Hey, I appreciate you, fam. It means the most. Can we please give a round of applause to Swift Dreamer? That's some amazing answers. I'll talk to you soon, bro.
All right, take care.
Take care. I love it. All right, we got someone else that's sitting in here, and I'm not going to keep you here. I got two people in here. Cool. Okay, so I'm not going to keep y'all waiting, but I do want to hear what the chat is saying. I want to tap in with you. There was a few things that I did not see the first time that I want to get to. Mondog said, nowadays the image and lifestyle is more important than the music, but the music lasts longer. Mondog, you know what's crazy? I saw your comment that you left in the Country Wayne video. I watch every Country Wayne video from this series. I watch every single one. I watch everyone. So I went down the comments and I saw your comment. I was like, I was talking to Mondog yesterday. But he is the epitome of independence. If you don't know, Country Wayne is a comedian that instead of going the route of most comedians, which they go to Hollywood and they try to figure out how they can do stand-up and be discovered. And after they're discovered, they're getting in movies and they're hoping that, you know, they can kind of skyrocket their career through the usual system, the usual ecosystem. Country Wayne said, nah, I'm going to do it my own way. And he has put together such a phenomenal storyline, sometimes multiple storylines, where he'll have these characters, and some of the characters are actresses and actors and people that have kind of been looked over at some point in time and forgotten about because they were popular in the 90s, and he's turned them into stars of this web series. This web series, my friends, is shot on an iPhone. Every episode is on an iPhone. It's a great videographer, and he's going back and forth. It's not even any cuts. They're just talking, having conversations. It's fictional stories in real places in Atlanta. Country Wayne, not even to be pocket watching, Country Wayne said, nah, to Hollywood, right? Plus, his biggest thing is Jesus is popping. Like, he's a religious man, and he does not want to get wrapped up in that other world unless it's on his own terms. I respect him highly. Multimillionaire from the content that he distributes out on Facebook, social media, specifically now with YouTube ad revenue, multimillionaire. Because the videos are getting like 500,000, 700,000 views on a daily basis. There are Super Bowl commercials that are not getting that much viewership. On a daily basis, this is what he's getting. So to me, it represents not just artists, but it represents the new world we're in, is that we have the opportunity to do what the hell we want as long as we have the audacity to try it. I'm everywhere in the YouTube chats and comments. Well, I saw you there for sure. I saw you there for sure. Danny Morris says, sometimes popularity doesn't equal sales. I agree. I agree. Why do you think that is? Album sales do not define an artist. This is Kayla. Album sales do not define an artist's career progression or their brand success. And let's be real, albums do not generate as much revenue as they did back in the day. So what's the point? Kayla, I don't know if you're being I don't know if you're being a smart ass about that, but they do matter. I just showed you a few examples that have viral commentary underneath them. These are the people that when somebody is looking up an artist for the first time because they saw them on an Apple iTunes front page or Apple Music front page or a Spotify front page, these are the folks that folks research. And if they go to the commentary, which everyone does because it's a human thing, if they go to the commentary and they say, damn, enter artist name has fell off. They fell off. Damn, why you say that? Bro, did you see the album sales? If that person does not scroll down to the album sales and all they see are people like, damn, I'm so disappointed in where this artist is, that has an influence upon whether or not they'll be interested in in pursuing what they're listening to. So we can say that album sales don't matter, but we know that is a lie because it is a metric by which people judge people's value. Even in a time where albums don't sell nearly as much, it's still an opportunity for somebody to neg, an opportunity for somebody to downplay another human being. And so I asked the question, so then why do they need to be, even more so to your point, if they're not relevant, why are they shared publicly? Why is there the opportunity for public humiliation for these artists that work so hard on their artistry, so hard on their projects, just to be broken down by metrics that, as you put it, don't even matter anymore? But they do matter because that determines how much money they'll get for the next album. You ever heard of the sophomore curse? It's still a thing, except it's more of a financial conversation. No, we're not going to give you that support that we gave you marketing-wise. Your marketing budget is going to be split now because, yes, album sales don't matter as much as they do, but look how that influenced what we're able to peel away from this and say were wins or losses for this album. You can't. You can't. You can't just throw your hands up and say, well, why do we care about any of it at all? It's because it's relevant. it's because it's relevant. I wouldn't be talking about it if it wasn't relevant. It's a conversation that people are having. I'm sorry if it doesn't interest you, but this is what it is. Streaming numbers are the new radio spins. The numbers are never really about the artist, but the label meeting or exceeding contractual obligations. Be that as it may, it's still a topic of public discourse. It's still an opportunity for influential voices in podcasts, influential voices in media to say, well, I don't believe this artist is relevant anymore. And they can make a strong argument by saying, well, where's the support that they supposedly have if they can't even muster up this amount of sales? So I think as long as it's out there, it shouldn't be for us, but yet it is. Kayla, I figured you wasn't. Don't nobody got a profile picture that beautiful and to be a smart ass. I don't think you was. I was just being a smart ass. Don't mind me. That's just me reflecting. That's me reflecting. Don't take it personal. It's all love. I see Ice Spice got currently 14 million views and counting on TikTok for her new song snippet. How much money is she getting off of that? Well, according to a few platforms that I saw, TikTok now has a 50-50 split with their creators. They saw YouTube trying to come in here with YouTube Shorts, and they said, yeah, so to a certain select few, I believe it's 100,000 followers and up, you get a 50-50 split of the ad revenue for your platform. I would argue she probably makes more money on the platform than she does for the actual streaming because of how many hands are in that money. Right? You think about a 360 deal, I don't know if that's a part of the new 360 deals, but I imagine it is. I haven't seen a contract recently, but I imagine it is because there are now labels that are making it a requirement for artists to have a TikTok presence. Think about that for a second. They're making it an obligation, regardless of the age of the artist, regardless of the demographic of the artist. They're making it a requirement for the artist to make TikToks. Is that not crazy? So I would argue that a lot of this is made public because the real money is being made elsewhere. I'm sure if I could afford the marketing and professional equipment, I'd have many, many more listeners, but being DIY, I don't have to sugar person to bankroll all that. I have over 8 albums out. Shout out to you, true DIYer. This is a good question. What role does Nielsen SoundScan and Billboard play in calculating not only physical sales and downloads, but only streaming numbers? What role do they play with calculating streaming numbers? That's a great question. That's not one that I actually have the answer for. I'm transparent, I don't have the answer for that. But I will say it's quite interesting when you go to these websites and how they kind of pose themselves to be just reporting the facts. There's a necessity for them to generate income. And on a website that has advertisements, this is just for any general business. This is an observation. For any website that has advertisements, that means money is being generated and there's a necessity for money to be generated. These are not like just, public companies that are like charitable companies. If the amount of ads or the type of ads has an influence upon what advertisers reach out to a billboard. Let's just use Billboard. I don't really know Nielsen like that. Nielsen SoundScan. What would stop them from making the design or the aesthetic of their charts more, how can I put this? More in the direction of somebody that would equal more traffic, right? So I looked on the Billboard charts yesterday and I saw that there was a few different lists, and some of the names, I mean, it could be website design, but some of the names were kind of shifted over and some of the names were shifted this way. Me understanding that this is There's a psychology to web design. There's a psychology to the size of things and whether things are in bold or whether things have color around them. There's a color psychology. There's a font psychology. I have to believe that has an influence. Now they'll probably say that no, we're not in that situation. But I think about like even the way, you know, I don't agree with Lil Nas X and all of the crazy antics and things that he does, but when his first song came out, Old Town Road, I remember them taking him off of the charts, the country charts, and putting him specifically on the hip hop trap charts without explanation. Oh, this is not a country song, when it's literally a cover of a country song. It took Miley Cyrus' daddy being on there, right, from the TV show. It took Miley Cyrus' daddy being on there before that became a country song. So my thing is, if you exist and there are even like racial boundaries, because I read in many of books that genres in themselves carry a lot of racist history. It was a way to ensure that certain music wouldn't get in certain households. It wouldn't be sold in certain record stores, old school record stores, like real records. Genres were a way of segregating music. And therefore, the places that they're played would segregate the people. So knowing that still exists, and I know now it's more so about categorizing music. We get that we need to categorize it. We love the subgenres. We love being able to be proud of our genre and say there's a culture behind it. But initially, these genres were created so that there wouldn't be certain music in certain places. So when I look at the billboards and I see them doing things like that, where they're able to move things over and take things out, and you're able to dictate what is and what's not country, what is and what's not hip hop. Who are these folks that are able? Who are you? What experience do you have in music to make such a decision? What do you know about kicks and snares to tell me what's the difference between a country and a trap song? Who did it? And that person, what's their benefit for being able to separate that? We're just asking questions. All right, let's talk to our guests. I kept the guests waiting. I want to make sure that we're having an opportunity. Y'all are putting in some really, really great feedback. I appreciate everyone that's been here. This is super dope. All right, let's get here to our guests and see what they talking about. All right, let's go here first to Jalen. Give him a little second to jump in. Jalen, are you with me?
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes. How you doing?
How you doing, sir? Mr. Curtis King. I believe I spoke to you last time in your last five about producers, what's best for them on their techniques, how to use them. I know I'm throwing you off topic, but
no,
glad to be
here. You good. It's good to have you back here. How Happy New Year and all that good stuff to you and your family.
Happy New Year, sir.
All right.
Happy New Year's.
I appreciate that. So that being said, what is your point of view on the topic at hand? Should album sales, and even to a certain degree, should streaming numbers be made public?
Well, I'm gonna make this short because I can't be on it too long. I just
no
want
worries.
to speak. But I really would ask what it depends, because what is the end goal of what it is that they're trying to show, either towards for the label or for the executives or for the audience? Like, it would depend what's the end goal of it.
Right.
What I would add, because most of the time, some artists that you might see today, either young or still in the game or maybe older, they kind of want to just show what they achieved. Right. Even though they got accolades and streaming and performance and everything else, it's kind of like a, symbol of, look how many people support that my artist out there that I can connect to on a high base, especially when you have artists that's been in the industry for so long and they hit that diamond and platinum. It's like, that shows a lot of work that they put in and it got to that point.
Right.
But most of it comes from a negative side where people kind of want to flex it in a sense. In this generation, I got so many people that's buying my albums and streaming and all that. But you did say a point that the numbers don't really translate to people of the album sales though. because you got to think, and everybody pretty much know this is kind of an income that most of the artists need, especially, to pay the bills and have that lifestyle. So I did want to throw that in there. So for them to just put it public to the audience that, per se, like your album only 6K, 7K, only 10K, and to say that, and you're right, who determined what is the barrier or the number of something flopping, or what is the certain amount that a person had to reach to say that they succeeded or they met the mark?
See, you making a solid point, and it makes me want to pose this question.
Oh, go ahead.
So I know that there's platinum, I know that there's gold, I know there's these measurements of success in that sense. But once again, that is something that is determined on some man-made metrics, right?
Yes.
I would really like to see an official, and this is just for that ecosystem, I'm not even talking about for us as independents. I would really love to see an industry-wide curve, because we know that when music is hit a certain way, it doesn't get hit in only one genre, right? With the exception of like this was the first year that hip hop, the gap got closed a little bit in terms of hip hop's domination of other genres.
Yes.
But it will be interesting to see, based upon the highest selling album, the Taylor Swifts and anybody who does those crazy numbers that we don't know how much of that, we don't know what that budget looks like, but it will be interesting to see the curve be determined based upon genre, the curve, and say these are the measurements of highly successful albums. Because what if a 2,000 sold album is the equivalent of a 60,000 sold album 20 years ago?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like is that,
yes.
and if we could have the curve be determined, because it feels like no matter what artist comes out, if it's not Drake numbers, it's like, oh, you flopped.
And who decided that? Who
benefits from that?
I would have to ask this then. Yeah. We kind of have to figure out where was the turning point in certain genres to where the stakes got raised a bit higher for success. Where did that come from on each genre? Because you got to think, we don't have major artists in each, or singers or rappers, artists in general, who reach that, highest peak of it, where it would be impossible now for someone to reach that as well.
You're not doing MC Hammer numbers. You're not doing MC Hammer numbers in 2023. You know what I'm saying?
Or even Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson,
that. Like, it's impossible now to kind of get to that point of that level.
Yeah.
So we would have to ask ourselves, where was that turning point that we upped the stakes? And I remember I was in college where somebody told me that, remember, that making money off your music is a privilege, because that is something that is given, but for you to explore and connect and still get paid off of it, that's a privilege that comes with it as well.
I agree.
So I want a lot of people who's either in learning, beginning, or expert, or been in the game for a while, or learning production and stuff, to understand that and remember that. But we would still have to figure out, where is that turning point? But to answer that question, though, it would really depend on what do the labels really want to show? Because you have to think, that artist represents the label. You're with them. So for them to go out again, because this is like a competition in a sense, because this is a game that they play, they would have to show, hey, look at this. He getting 100, 200, or she getting 100, 200, 300, 400K on their albums and stuff, or in streaming numbers. Like, we got this. It kind of shows, it represents that. And you know how you can walk into a label and see all the great artists that they have on their wall.
Right.
See each point of accolades that they reach. So my answer would be, it depends. What's the end goal? Are you trying to show who you have, which represents what you stand for in your label? Or are you doing this just to show and boast that we've been in this for like 20, 30, 40, 50 years?
Yeah.
And we're still going with our artists, and we can reach that level.
That's a great point.
So that's what I would kind of just throw in there.
Look, I don't want to hold you because I know you say you're short on time, but look, round of applause for you. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation.
Appreciate it, Mr. Curtis King.
You have a good one.
You too, man.
Yeah, really valid points. So there's something I wanted to actually ask him about while he was on here, but here's some thoughts that I got just from initially what we heard JR say. Who benefits from it? I think the person that benefits firstly from this and the person that has so much control. You know who has the most slept on position that hardly gets talked about, especially when it comes to album campaigns? The PR. The PR and their relationships with outlets will ultimately determine whether or not you as an artist will be able to get on the platform. If that PR has a bad relationship, it doesn't matter. We just saw a situation recently where a former employee of Vlad TV, right, a PR who reached out to I believe an artist about getting them as a guest on the platform. I think it was Sweetie. That was the whole controversy, and he went off about how they denied his invitation for an interview. And he was able to say after the album sales came out, well, if you would have come on my platform, then it would have been a different situation. But and I'm not saying it was a bad relationship with the PR, but if the PR is not able to convey, right, if they're not able to bridge that gap, they're the ones that have the ultimate control over whether an artist gets promoted on these media platforms that we all watch on Twitter, on YouTube, and all these different podcasts that we watch, right? But after that, they don't get the blame. The artist does. Even worse, the artist's music gets the blame. Dang. We start figuring out as listeners reasons why that album flopped. You know what? It's the production. Oh, you know what? Hey, fam, you was kind of rapping a little bit different on this one. And whether these are factual or not, we're now looking for that because we don't view it in the same positive sense that we would view an album that that actually got critical acclaim. That's dangerous. JR also asked the question, when did it flip? And I think that the moment that hip-hop as a culture slipped out of the hands of those who were creating it and it got into the hands of those who only operate from a business standpoint, that's where it flipped. That's a con that was created, but the pro of that was the pride of independence, right? The pride of I'm an independent producer, I'm an independent artist. The pride came out of that, right? To where it's like, no, I'm not abiding by that. I'm independent, and I'm going to run this as my own business. And then you have the legendary labels that were created from there. Were the originals in this. But I think that soon as you get certain folks involved in the business who are only thinking business, only thinking bottom line, they don't give a damn about what comes through the assembly line. They don't care who dies in the assembly line. They don't care who gets shot in the assembly line. They don't care how their mental health is. They're an investment. And they've also figured out that this investment, if this artist dies, well, we got to roll out for that because so many of them die. So now we got to roll out, let's call BET. Let's get their funeral to be public. Let's get the stadium involved. Let's, sell free tickets online and send it send a bunch of traffic to the website. Let's make a landing page for them. There's a rollout for it. Okay, we can predict the streams are probably going to go up 200 to 300%. There's a rollout for the death of an artist now in that ecosystem. That's a problem. That's a problem. All right, I want to talk to R. Greffin, and I think we're going to spend a little bit more time here in the chat. And if nobody else is in here, we're going to go ahead and bounce out. This is a really, 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 really great conversation. I'm glad that we were able to get folks to come in here and chime in. This is really great talk. R. Greffin is always full of so many gems. So I'm very much looking forward to talking to R. Greffin. Ricky Adams, I see that we get to take control of ourselves, and I think that's the most important thing. R. Greffin Music, how you doing?
I'm all right, Curtis. How you doing, man? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's good to hear from you. I'm doing all right. You been doing all right in this new year?
Yeah, been trying to plant the seeds on trying to make some improvements in my life for the year. So definitely, yeah.
Okay. All right. No, I get it. I get it. I've had some things on the personal end, specifically with my mom that have been of some concern, but we at the end of the day, we really don't have a choice but to figure it out, right? And figure out how to pivot from there. So I'm sending you nothing but positive energy and hoping for the best, praying for the best. But I am glad.
I was gonna.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was gonna ask, like, how's your family doing?
We're doing all right. Just staying in constant prayer for my mom, and that's all I'll pretty much say about that, especially in the public forum. But I mean,
Gotcha.
It was an announcement that was a doozy, but we're pushing through and doing the best we can. But part of the value and part of the things that I can do to support her is to make sure that I'm doing things to support this community and create value that in turn put me in a position to do that. So I appreciate you even asking, Art Greffin.
No problem, man. The essentials will always count.
Absolutely. You know, hard work don't work unless you work. so I'm here and I'm ready to do it. So that being said, the topic at hand is, should album sales be public information? Should streaming numbers be public information? Art Greffin, what are your thoughts on that?
As many people have said, it's kind of a tricky thing because, all right, I'm gonna say this: hip hop is the most influential genre in my life, and I didn't really care about album sales and nothing like that until hip hop came into my life. But more specifically, around later on in the 90s when it was spoken about. Like, I remember hearing in the early 90s people talking about going gold and going platinum. I'm like, what is that? Is that like, I didn't know what that was. I even know if that was like a material. I was like, what the hell is that? But as I got older, hearing about gold and platinum, hearing like some of my favorite artists reach like doing that, you know, not finding out that gold was 500,000, platinum was 1 million copies. It felt like almost a sense of pride, like, oh shoot, my favorite artist was able to do this and do that because of people buying it. You know, like I remember one of my biggest memories of that being a major thing was when DMX first album came out. It's Dark and Hell is Hot. And when they say the streets have spoken, I think he went platinum. And I remember when that album hit, it was such an important thing.
Right.
For me. So in regards to, let's say, album sales and all that stuff, it felt important because it felt like the community did something. It felt like we were a part of something. But prior to the numbers coming out, we felt something from the artist. So that was something that was very, very important. Now, not every artist has had released things that connected with me that well, but they may have made astronomical numbers like 10 million platinum, so on and so forth.
Right.
And then it leads to the whole confusion of, damn, well, how come this, excuse my language, this artist that I deem as whack made like 12 million in sales, but my favorite artist did like 2 million in sales. And it led to that whole debate of, you know, in regards to sales, like, I wonder what's happening. Like, why is it this? And I got indoctrinated into believing that album sales equated to the quality of the work.
See, you said, I knew you was going to say a word. You said a whole word right there. That is the reason why I wanted to have this shared. That's the reason I wanted this topic to get diced up. I was hoping that someone would say what you just said. that ultimately is the most dangerous part about it all, is that the train of thought. And we're the folks who are actually in music. We make music. We understand the ins and outs. I'm talking about the people who actually buy merchandise, who actually, they have no foot in the music. They just listen to music.
Yeah.
I know where our brains go. We're thinking like, as if we're in that position, like, man, like, what happened to their promotion? Is it the label? Is it this? I can only imagine what a listener says. If a listener's like, maybe their music isn't as good as I thought it was. That's got to be a thought. And if that's a thought, especially and I think it's a lot of younger folks who are like that, but I think even a lot of folks who are up there, they still have that thought of, well, I don't want to like something that everybody else thinks is embarrassing to listen to or not as relevant. I think there's a lot of folks who think that way, especially folks who are not in it like we are. So that's an interesting point.
And it's funny you said that because on my computer, like as the live was starting, I opened up a notepad, and as I was thinking of the question, I was writing down certain notes and trying to just think, and I'm like, of course, numbers, just like the previous caller, Jay, he said a couple of things that I was going to mention.
Okay.
In regards to, let's say, like how companies would show the numbers somewhat as like a flex, like, yo, look what I did. And then all these other company competitors are like, oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
And then somehow, some way, they'll start doing that stuff too.
Yeah.
But to kind of pivot to what we were just mentioning, like, say, for example, TikTok and all that stuff, you can see on there, like, how many millions of views certain videos and stuff have. And a lot of folks who are not acclimated to it, they may say, oh, wow, this has so many views. Let me go press play.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on what they press play to, they may say, wait, that's it?
See,
14 million.
That right there, that right, those two words, that's it. Those two words, and I understand the context you're saying it, but those two words have the ability to stop the flow of income for someone's career, or to dramatically impact how they feed their family, how they live off. And let me just put this out there too. Like, I'm empathetic as a human being for anybody in a situation that is unfair. I'm a little bit less empathetic for folks who go into the belly of the beast and are and are surprised that everybody who's walked outside this same haunted house is saying the same thing, and it happened to them. I'm a little less empathetic for that.
They walk out shivering, catching the chills. Like
you see the snow coming down, right? Like you see the weather, right? You're surprised and want us to rally around you because you're having issues with your label, but it's like, no, when you sign on that dotted line, when you make that commitment to be a part of this situation, you are saying, whatever comes down that pipeline, and I just got to make do with it because I have made a commitment to now operate my business in this infrastructure. And so those words, though, and those words, you know what's so wild about living in 2023 and just our time now? Those words doesn't have to be even uttered by somebody of influence. Remember way back when Biggie said, he mentioned Kwame and the polka dot T-shirts?
Oh my God!
And that literally obliterated his influence in hip hop because Biggie made fun of the polka dots on Kwame, another rapper at the time. His polka dot.
Kwame, he caught a stray for no reason.
For no reason. Or even like in Living Color, like back in that time where one spoof could be the end of your song being successful.
Oh yeah.
Right?
I remember those days.
Or it could go up, but that's the point I'm making. At least in that time, there were people of influence who had that power, and it just comes with it. It's almost like Weird Al Yankovic. He makes a parody of a song, and it can either blow up or it can either be seen as, okay, it's completely mainstream, completely a pop culture situation. But now, it's just somebody having a bad day who says the right words with the wrong energy, and it goes viral.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, like, putting yourself out there, like, I'm saying this as I'm faceless right now, but just putting yourself out there is a lot in and of itself. That's why I salute you for doing what you're doing for so long, because I've been watching what you've been doing for years. And it kind of goes into another point that I was about to say, how you, like, putting out the numbers is one thing, but the consistency and the longevity tells a whole nother story than anything. Like, you could put out album sales, like, let's say it, like the conversation about first week sales. I think someone had a question about, what would you rather have, monumental first week sales or like consistent yearly, like, monthly sales where it pretty much adds up to the same thing? Like, you're gonna get to the end goal, but it's like, what route do you want to go about it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I had a buddy of mine, and I'm not going to use the terminology he used because I'm not trying to get demonetized, But he said one of the biggest issues in hip hop is everybody wants to get their pleasure in public. They want to be able to say, "Look at me getting my pleasure." The pleasure is the pleasure, but they want everybody to see them getting their pleasure. You see that? You see what I'm getting right now? But they want it done.
The attention is the currency.
It's not good enough to actually have success. Matter of fact, they'll ignore and overlook the success if it means that the dopamine of fame and popularity is attached to it instead.
Yeah.
Like, think about Instagram and the people who post things, private jets, and we come to find out that influencers go to a certain place in LA and it's like a private jet set that is cut off, a half a plane that's cut off, and it's a room that they go in, and it looks like a set, a private jet, but it's actually a movie set of a private jet. Like, folks live that all day. The Lamborghinis. Like, I watch so many videos where folks are taking pictures on top of Lamborghinis, and the person who actually owns it, as a YouTuber, comes outside and they're like, get off my car. But it feels good to be like, I don't know if that's yours, but it's believable enough.
Right. Like
man.
those symbols of success. Like, it seems like a symbol of success, for those people, like, since they may not know what success may look like, they're given these ideas of what it's supposed to look like to the point that they become robotic. And it's like, okay, at what point are you able to pivot to where you realize, wait, this is just one layer out of 10 layers of this whole cake?
Yes. Yes.
Like, the frosting is cool. Like, the color dye is cool, but what about all the other elements that it takes? Like, you need all these other things to bake this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they're more concerned about the whipped cream and the frosting on top, which is supposed to be the success. But how fulfilling is the rest?
It's a great analogy. That's a fantastic analogy. I had one of my managers when I was consistently as an artist. He used to say it was a 5-layer dip, and he said everybody in this industry. He said most people in this industry only want the sour cream and the cheese on top of that 5-layer dip. Yeah. He said, but when you put your chip into that 5-layer dip, the best stuff is at the bottom. It's the beans. It's when you get all of the stuff on top of the 5-layer dip, but all the way to the very bottom, and you like get that chip that's full of it. Folks during the Super Bowl know what I'm talking about. You get that party tray. That is what the true flavor comes out. And I think a lot of people are settling for top ingredients, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah. And another thing that's also interesting is that I think due to an artist being very performative musically, that's one of the reasons why numbers kind of matter, because you actually see the artist and you vibe with them. Like, they are at the forefront. However, you don't recall, like say like a CEO or an executive for a company may not be as appealing to the clientele, since those CEOs or whatever, they don't perform publicly. They're expected to be in the background.
Right.
So I think when it comes to an artist, since you see them, you're interested in them. You're like, hey, how's everything going? What? You know what? That leads into another question. Okay. Have you ever seen, like, or heard of, let's say, a project selling so well that you didn't buy yet, but because it sold so well, you're like, you know what? I'll wait a little bit. Like, it went 3 times platinum. Like, I was gonna get it, but I'm gonna wait.
No, even those Rolling Stone lists that are like the top 100 albums of the century.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that just as a music fan that's like, I've never heard this before, but I keep seeing people talk about it. I'll just listen to it. Just because it's like, well, I don't know what their knowledge of music is, but it's this is like my old way of thinking. Before I knew that these lists can be bought, and before I knew that, folks were just playing favoritism to the things that they like, and it's not just, like, because if you're going to expose a list, you got to expose how you got to that list. If you're going to expose a greatest of, give us the metrics that you're basing this on. Give us the algorithm. Let us know what the formula is so that we know, okay, so you are taking record sales into consideration. Well, I can dispute that by giving you albums that did not perform well when they first dropped, but have become hip-hop staples 20, 30 years later.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, those
you know what I'm
those are
saying?
always interesting to me. Those are always interesting to me where like those who were in tune, they caught on early,
Mm-hmm.
but because the world was not ready or maybe bad marketing, who knows? Maybe there could be a plethora of things. Years down the road, it's like that it's almost kind of like the similar thing of like first week sales, like monumental first week sales versus having something, let's say a million in the first week versus I don't know, divide a million by like 12, for like a
Okay.
month. Would you want a million first week sales or do you want
A milli
a
is a
12 like
milli.
right? So it's like, do you want the first week sales or do you want things divided up evenly because they're going to end up being the same way? Similar to, let's say, the whole thing about quality albums being made where it didn't get the attention in the beginning, but later on it grew in such a popular way that it's like, okay, now people caught up. So it's like, yeah, that happens a lot. Plus, there's a lot of people on the planet. So I think that's another thing that people we also have to remind ourselves, there's so many people on the planet, and it's like you can only reach but so many people.
And a lot of
So
these sales,
the work has to constantly be done.
I was gonna say a lot of these sales only reflect U.S. sales.
Yeah.
Which is already a bias in itself, because it's like there are certain artists that for the end of their career, until the end of their career, it doesn't matter what their relevance is in their genre that they were first known for. Tyrese is one of them. Tyrese can go to Dubai anytime he wants and get the red carpet treatment, book a show, and forever he will have that influence. It's not about relevancy. It's about appreciation, right?
I didn't even know that.
Look it up. Tyrese, like, look, it blew me away because I'm looking at like, oh, he gets the red carpet treatment. He gets the kind of treatment that you would think that in the States it would be folks who are just the biggest name right now, right? It would be like the the Drakes of the industry, but there are artists who kind of get like franchised in. They have such a core. Jaheim was another one of those where before he kind of, he had some public issues that came to light, but before he dealt with that, he had excuse my lack of a terminology, he had a baby mama fan base. Jaheim had a classic baby mama fan base. Like, you know what I mean? They had issues with their man. They still got issues with their man. Single mom. He had a fan base that showed up for him. And it did not necessarily always translate to record sales, but shows, they showed up. So once again, I got to ask the question, if we're going to make the sales public, why not make it all public?
True.
Because
I had another.
Go ahead. One last point I was going to say on that, because you inspiring a lot of things, but one last point I'm going to say, if we do make those public, you know what that does? It shows the hypocrisy in the motto to begin with. Because if you give me an artist that is a big artist right now, like Ice Spice, it is very common for them to book a bunch of shows and not every single one of them get publicized. Not every single one of them do well. It may be a situation where they were supposed to perform, but the club was so thin, they just called it a walkthrough.
Right.
But we don't get to hear about that. We only hear it when things go viral or when the entities that own the contracts to these artists want to display information out there. And I really feel like if they have the power to get their executive names removed from blog sites and removed from videos and posts, if they have that power to remove music at a moment's notice, why don't they have the same power to remove negative publicity of their artists?
See, now you're opening up a whole nother door.
I mean, but I'm sorry, you had a question. I want to make sure we get to that question because I'm always glad to hear from you.
Thank you. And I'm glad to see everything is still in good standing with you. The question I was having was, as like an add-on, like what should artists replace public sales number reveals with, if that's the case? Like instead of showing public sales,
that's a good question.
I mean, it's not something that could be answered right away, but it's like, what would be a replacement for that?
Does it need to be a replacement is my question.
That too.
Yeah, I think that's my initial answer is, does it need to be a replacement? Because no matter what metric it is, it can be manipulated, it can be bought. somebody can be negotiated. Like, I just wonder how much more variety, how much more of a variety of music would we listen to? Even those of us who have a very broad taste in music. How many new musicians and newer producers and new artists would we listen to if we didn't see the numbers? I'll tell you this, just from a aesthetic and psychology standpoint, when I look at social media and I look at Instagram, right? I haven't been on Instagram in a few months, like on a news feed. But when I look at Instagram news feed and I don't see likes, I spend more time with posts that interest me.
Yeah.
Because I cannot stop it. I am an analytics guy. It is so hard for me to stop myself from looking at, all right, what's the response to this? Because I'm always looking to see what is working, what is inspiring people to action. That's my job. I got to figure out the things that make people want to click on titles and click on thumbnails and make sure that it's all represented the right way. So I have to study what gets my eye. One thing I've been doing, especially on YouTube, anytime a thumbnail gets my attention, I screenshot it, put it into a folder in my iPhone, and I go back and study why it got my attention. Is it the rule of thirds? Is it the way that they position the text? Is it the type of text? Is it italic? Is it bold? So when I look at these Instagram posts and I see them without numbers, this makes me have it has an influence over me. But when you take the numbers away, I look at posts and then I judge the value of them based upon the value that is presented to me. It's not a conscious thing that I have to do. I have to do that when numbers are in front of me. When I'm on TikTok, I'm like, I don't care how popular this is. I know that comments can be bought. I know there's comment bots. I know that likes can be bought. I know that people can run ads on it. I know that this could be the one post that actually did well and everything else is just not hitting. I know that sometimes people go viral and don't know why they went viral and cannot get the magic back because they don't realize that it was an algorithmic decision. It had nothing to do with them. Very little to do with them. So when I see that, I'm able to now pull back and say, yes, this is very popular, but this is not for me. This is not something that actually is for my demographic or for my eyes and ears. But it's so hard because those numbers influence everything, especially when they're public and ridiculed.
And a lot of people have this need to belong to something too.
And it makes me wonder how many more people would show up to a show for the first time to belong to someone's fan base because they saw a YouTube video, didn't see the views, didn't see the plays, but they saw, yo, I like this music.
Mm-hmm.
How much
You know
more,
what that makes me think of?
What's that?
La Russell.
Yeah. Shout out La Russell. La Russell was a prime example of independence at his finest. Yeah. If you don't know La Russell, it's from the Bay Area, and he is an independent artist that is redefining the game in this modern era. He built his own stage in his backyard, his actual home.
That is so dope.
You know what I'm saying? Like he shows the process on all his social media where he's building. I don't know if it's a gazebo. He's like, we got a gazebo, or I forget what the name of it is, but they built the actual, like, he's hands-on with it. His family, like, he's in there in the actual kitchen of the same house that he performs at, packing up merchandise and sending it off and showing people, hey, we're packing it up here. That is 2023 independence, and that's what it looks like. It no longer has to look like a version of what the major label infrastructure looks like. This looks like something that's as accessible to me, you, and everybody else watching.
And he's making his own kind of music too.
And he's making his own music. Because that's the thing too, is that we get caught up in that place, and I want to know your opinion about this. You get caught up in that place where, okay, the numbers did well. Sales went crazy. Sometimes that's the worst thing that can happen to an artist, because now they have a responsibility to duplicate that success.
Yeah.
Now
they're pressured to almost live a lie.
And our Griffin, I don't know what your point of view on it is, and I'm going to ask you this right now, but don't you get artists that end up sounding the exact same on everything, and it's less of an artistic decision, it's less of that being their signature sound, and it's more now about them just duplicating the success and taking a very safe route in it?
Oh man, that's almost triggering, because I'm like, yo, whatever happened to back in the days? I hate being that kind of dude, but it's
we have to.
I miss when it was so reinforced for people to have their own style and then trust the process of building your own empire. You know, like
Yeah.
it's fearful because you're like, damn, what am I gonna do? But the reinforcement of, you know what, they're doing this. I may not do exactly what they're doing. They may have like this hardcore sound. I like the drums, but I want to do more of a smooth sound with what I'm doing.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I like that. And boy, I want to be nice. But it's weird because everybody starts somewhere. Like
Yeah.
when you think about it, we all start, as I said from like the last combo, there's always like a template to follow. We all look for certain things to help start out with. And then eventually, depending on whatever environmental influences you have, you then discover yourself along the way and you become who you're supposed to be. But there's too much of an emphasis as of late where too many people sound the same. And it's like I'm gonna tell you this. It's to the point where I can't name you a current producer today that I'm familiar with.
Wow. You know what? I'm with you, Art Griffin. Like I can name some, but I only can name you them because I'm a content creator.
Right.
Like I'm not. Why is that? Why is that for you? Why is it you can't name the individual producers?
It's weird. I was gonna say one because I'm a producer myself, but that's not an excuse. Two, coming up, hearing that DJ Premier, Dr. Dre, Lord Finesse, Pete Rock, and all these other people had a sound. I was able to identify who's who and what's what, even without opening up the album booklet, looking at the linear notes.
Bingo. Bing. I wish I had an alarm right now. That alarm be going off right there.
I'll be there along.
Thank you. I appreciate that. When you hear Premiere, the first thing I hear is boom bap drums. I hear sound effects, birds chirping. Like I hear record scratches. I just hear that. It's embedded in the name. When I hear Dre, I hear a certain amount of space in the sound. I hear a simplistic, minimalist approach, but a cinematic mix to do. Like I just hear that, and I think what a lot of producers is like, they figure out how to advance what one person did and add one unique spin, but then they run that play for the next however X amount of years. I remember Postman Beats said it one time at an event. He was like, producers have shorter career spans than football players.
Wow, he said Postman. Wow.
Yeah, that's an OG name, right? He said producers have a shorter career span than football players. And I looked it up.
Yeah.
Football players average about 5 to 6 years. And you know, I obviously want to send positive energy to the football player that you know, he had that recent injury and he collapsed, and that's just a scary situation. But they're
even scarier. He's around our age.
He's around our age. So seeing that, and he gets hit on a regular. Football players in general get hit on a regular basis. Their careers, if they're just average, not even the great ones, average. Now we're not talking about the Tom Brady's who are here to their 50, but average 6 years. You think about producers. When he said that, when Postman said that, it was less relevant than it is now today, because now producers don't even last 3 years. You think about some producers don't even last a summer season.
Oof.
Right? Let's talk about this. And this is not me trying to like say that in any way this person fell off or that they're not relevant. We know relevancy is all subjective. But think about how much we heard mustard on the beat, mustard on the beat, mustard on the beat, mustard on the beat, mustard on the beat. There was a cool summer, there was a cool year before you got his Rock Nation deal. It was a cool year. That's all you heard, especially in LA radio. All you heard was mustard on the beat. And it's done for. It was done for, and then somebody else moved into that space. So it's hard for me to keep up with the producers. For me, Art Griffin, because one, I don't know how long they'll be here. Two,
Yeah.
it's hard for me to become a fan of a producer that is duplicating a sound that I don't know if it represents where they're from. This is just me. Me being
Oh my God.
doesn't
Oh my
represent
God.
where they're from.
I miss those days too, man. When
Right?
you kind of felt where they're. It made you want to know who they are and why and like what influenced them to make that sound, yo.
And a lot of my producer community doesn't like when I say this because they feel like you should be able to make whatever you want to make, and I do believe you should. Make whatever you want to make, but I do think that there's a value in me living in California, living in Southern California, and never experiencing what it's like to live in Florida, and you get to show me through snares, through tempo, through samples, through the type of instruments that you use, through the slang of the rapper, through the accent on the rapper. You get to show me for a second what it's like to walk down your street. That's exciting.
Exactly.
That is supremely exciting. Now with the producers, it's so like you could literally insert anybody's name, and if the tag wasn't on it, I'd believe they made it.
Yeah, it's like, what's the point of traveling if every place sounds like it feels like the same? You know, it's like.
You said a whole word.
It's and the thing is, and to everybody listening, it's not a way. It's like, as I say, no one and nothing is exempt from critique.
Absolutely.
No one. So it's being said out of love, and it's being said out of encouragement for people to not deny the influences of your environment. Okay, even if people are borrowing sounds from other places. What in your environment can you incorporate in what you're doing to where people need to? It's funny you said this because I had a conversation. I was thinking about this the other day. When you make something where people come to you for what you do, being number one on the billboard or whatever doesn't matter because you're number one at what you're doing.
Talk about it. Hold on, I gotta give you a round of applause for that one. You got to run that back. You're gonna have to run that one back. You're gonna have to run that one back, Art Grafton. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. One more time. Okay. Because now you're tapping into one of the irrefutable laws. There's a book called 22 Irrefutable Laws of Marketing. I'm going to create content around it really soon. It's one of my favorite books, 22 Irrefutable Laws of Marketing. And one thing it says, if you cannot, it says it is better to be the first. It is better to if you can't be the first. What was it? I'm gonna look it up. But basically, it was alluding to what you just talked about, in that there's more value in being first in a space where nobody else can say they dominate because it didn't exist before your existence.
Right.
But please repeat that one more time, because there was that's just gem right there. Essentially,
when you I'm gonna try to repeat it the best way I can. Essentially, because there's times I'll just shoot off the hip and I'm like, wait, what did I say? Essentially, what I was telling people, be aware of your surroundings and try to incorporate that into what you're doing. And when you are focused on being the best at what you're doing, to where people come to you for what you're doing, being number one on the billboard doesn't matter. People have to come to you for what you do because you are the creator of what you're doing. You have to open up that pathway so that if it's just like an entree, you may not be the rice, you may not be the macaroni, but you have your own little addition.
Yes.
Your own little addition to where you can at least be an option. You may not be the most important option, but sometimes you may not want to be number one. You want to be who you are, so that people appreciate you for what you do and how you introduce yourself. So, and I think, yeah.
You think? Wow. Well, you said you think. I want you to end that point, because I'm going to read specifically. I found the part of that book. But continue.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You good.
So R. Greffin alluded to the importance of being first in whatever you're doing. If you're a producer and you're tapping into a new sound, it is important for you to be the first. It is more important for you to be the first than it is for you to be better than your favorite producer. Here's what book, one of the most classic books in marketing that you'll ever read. It is like across the board. It's like the 48 laws of marketing. Mm-hmm. But Chapter 1, the law of leadership, it says, it's better to be first than it is to be better. The basic issue in marketing is not convincing prospects that you have a better product or service. The basic issue in marketing is creating a category you can be first in.
Yes.
The first the first black woman to win the U.S. Open. That doesn't necessarily say the best ever to ever exist, but existing in that space matters, and it matters to a lot of people.
Yeah.
How many of you could be the first in a category that will matter once you take that ownership? That's why you can go to websites and they'll have these unsubstantiated claims about we're the number one. Somebody will say we're the number one sound pack website in the world. Nobody's checking for that number. But if you said
that always seemed real sus.
It's real sus, right? It's like a position. It's marketing. It's positioning. I get it, right? But if you were able to say we're the going more specific, you were able to say we're the number one independent music-based sound design company in Omaha, Nebraska. Or we're the first sound design company to service only independent music producers.
Right.
That's something that you can be number one in. So here's another thing they say about the audience. For those of you that are marketing your products and your services, it's much easier to get into the mind first than to try to convince someone you have a better product than the one who got there first. The example they have for this, Hertz. Hertz has positioned themselves as the second best rent-a-car. They knew they weren't going to be first. They knew they weren't going to be first, right? Right? You're not going to get first, but we can be second. Let me see.
That's actually dope. That's actually dope.
Let me see. Rent. Let me see. Hertz. What is it? Hertz. Tagline. Let me see what it is. Well, the tagline back in 1959 was Hertz put you in the driver's seat, but at some point in time, it had to do with being the second best, and they own that. They own that. And it's like, if you can own a space. I remember there's a rapper that I used to work with named Speaks. He said, I'm the 36th best rapper of all time.
That's real specific.
But because he says that, who's going to debate it? And it was like the audacity for you to say that. I don't know who's in that position who's like, no, I'm 36. You're 37. But he owned the space. So then if anybody else said, I'm the 36th best rapper in the world, you got that from Speak. It's better to be first than it is to be better.
Right.
Oh, man. Look, it was hilarious, too. It had me. Yeah. It was one of the greatest marketing efforts I saw from an independent artist at a show. And he had one of the greatest shows I've ever seen in my life. But R. Griffin, I was going to say, I'm getting ready to wrap up. Do you have any final thoughts for this topic, or any? You full of so many gems and wise words, and we always appreciate hearing from you. You got anything that you want to end off or cap off from what you've been sharing with us?
That's a good question. It's tough. It's tough because sales can be an identifier for your business, and as someone who wants to use as a gauge of success. I think that people need to look at sales as one gauge, but not the ultimate gauge, essentially. And it's just like what Pearl Manhattan was had mentioned before about if they're going to talk about the profit, talk about the expenses, all that other stuff. It would be interesting if someone does show that, and that's a part of their marketing campaign, as like a way of saying to people, yo, you guys help me do this. We've been going through these steps here and here, but just here's to show you what these sales did for us, and like I guess figure out a way of giving back. Well, I guess see, now I'd have to really think.
I don't ever ask these questions. Especially, I had this question written down in my notes at the beginning of December, and right. It still in some ways stomped me enough to where I was like, I know that I'm not 1,000% right on this. I know that somebody's going to have a different point of view that's going to make me say, you know what, that is the necessity of having them be public. But all in all, I'm just in a place now where after having these conversations with every one of you and hearing different perspectives, I see a lot of pros for it. I see a lot more cons for having it public. And I think it's just bigger picture than just the music. I think zooming out, society at large is understanding numbers in a way that society's never had to understand them. and the effect that it has on our self-esteem, the effect that it has on our mental health, the effect that it has on our happiness. Now, taking it away is only solving the side effect and not necessarily the disease that is the source of it, but it is a place to start. I was so happy to see Instagram remove the likes because I had no idea of the suicide numbers of, and I'm sorry for anybody in here that word is triggering. I'm just being.
Yeah, that was nuts to hear.
To hear how much influence that has because of the wrap it has around their dopamines. That always, like when it comes to the kids, especially even before I was a father, when it comes to the kids, I got younger sisters. I'm always thinking about trying to be an example of another positive influence, right? Something authentic, something real, but it's so much out here that they're exposed to. Why can't I just be a voice? Why can't there just be a voice every once in a while that's like, hey, here's a little bit of balance. Here's a little bit of harmony and all of this stuff going on. But when you hear about all those numbers that are dealing with those kids and you talk about, I don't know, based upon the time that I grew up, I knew that it was hard for its own reasons. But there wasn't embarrassment that could be seen by a million people.
Right.
I don't understand what that feels like. And to be 15 or 16 and that happens. Like to get in a fight and you get beat up. It happens. That's gonna happen if you fight a lot in school. That happens.
Right.
To have it now displayed on Fox News as what's wrong with the children of the day. You are now in the news because somebody pulled out.
Man.
That's a time. So when I think about that and I think about because of what numbers mean to this generation, this society right now, you can't ignore things like this. Only reason I bring up album sales first before any other metric is because that's just our industry. That's our niche. That's what we're going to talk about. But I think at large, my bigger point is that I think a lot of different places are going to be influenced by the are these numbers necessary for public consumption? Do we? And I think the businesses are going to realize we don't even need them for the bottom line, for the dopamine addiction.
Like I don't know what the numbers are for a violinist, or let's say a painter, or let's say any other profession. Like I've never been concerned about the sales for, let's say, a painter, a sculptor, a violinist, or whatever. Like I was more focused on what are they contributing for the moment.
I'm taking it at face value.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a weird dynamic that I'm already used to. But then you brought up a great question. Like, wait, why is that such a thing?
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Our Griffin, you know, it's always a pleasure to shopping. Well, I'm gonna tell you, it's always a pleasure shopping up with you. I greatly appreciate your input, your wisdom, and being so open about. Even your own perspective, and it's amazing to hear you say in real time, like, let me think again on that one, because now I'm thinking a little.
Yeah.
Greatly appreciate you.
Thank you for presenting the topic too, because it had me thinking. I was in the middle of something, and then I look at the top. I'm like, wait, what? I was like, let me pause. Let me think.
It's always something deeper. I just need an opportunity sometimes to explain it. I'm getting better about making it more clear, but thank you. And I got to make sure we give a round of applause. So once again, R. Griffin, thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you, man. As always, salute, peace and blessings. Hopefully the family's safe and protected and all that other stuff, and stay on your path, man.
Thank you. Likewise. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is R. Griffin. Great points, great energy. R. Griffin definitely dropped some food for thought. Yes, he did. What's up, Lazy Eye? All right, so we're going to go ahead and end it here. So here's a few ending thoughts. I feel like Jerry Springer. Here's a few ending thoughts that I have about this topic. I think you guys bring up a lot of great pros and cons for both sides. I don't think there's any absolutes in this situation. I try not to be a purist about my own thoughts. I think there's ego involved in that, and I am wrong a lot. Right? But I think it's important for us to question the things that we've kind of like pushed off to the side as why do we even need to even have the discussion about it? Because every year we become someone different. Every day, in some shape or form, the world around us shifts us a little bit, right? We may have this core, for some of us who are hardcore about it, we may have this core that doesn't change. But there's something that is forever being influenced by the things that we see and that we hear, because we're human beings. Nobody's a robot. No matter what they tell you, nobody's a robot. You're influenced in some shape or way. Even if it's you being, I'm dismissive of it. I don't even want to look at it. You're influenced by that. So if we're in a place where it's cancel culture season, we're in a place where people want to bring up old tweets, well, let's bring up old ideologies. I have a platform, and I'm going to use that platform to not only share my thoughts, but to hear your thoughts and to get some real human beings that are giving perspective on it. Like Dave Chappelle said, when 9/11 happened, the news thought it would be a good idea, when they were doom promoting everything going on, to go interview Ja Rule. No disrespect to Ja Rule, but like Dave Chappelle said, I'm not trying to hear what Ja Rule's thoughts on 9/11 right now. I need to know about the first responders. I need to know about the people who are actually down there and affected. You know what I'm saying? I need to know from some other people first, some emergency folks. And I think that we get in a place where we just, celebrity culture, I said it in a few episodes ago in this Community Gems, celebrity culture is such a distraction. It's such a distraction. It's such a blockage from our happiness. But it's not the only one. There's a lot of things that we could point to as blocking what ultimately makes us happy. But I think that it's important for us to catch these things and to ask questions about things that we haven't asked questions about in a long time, right? In the same way that when you're in a relationship, you may have been with somebody for an X amount of years, but believe you me, if you're not the one taking inventory, the other person taking inventory of you. This sucker ain't picked up his clothes. He ain't took the trash out. He's a dirty human being. You wasn't like that when I met you. All you do is make beats. All you do is sit up here and comment on the YouTube. But how about instead of telling this YouTuber what they need to do with their life, how about you pick your drawers out the sink? Somebody take an inventory of you, and it's updated inventory. So maybe we should do the same thing about the things that we have taken on as just, oh, that's just how it is. No, that ain't how it is. It genuinely made me angry to see my boy, my brother, Ab-Soul. I'm not even on that project. I'm not even producing for that project. I'm listening to the music like, this is the most phenomenal music I've ever heard him create. And I've known him since we were, since I won't say yay high, but I was pretty young in this music game. I was like my early 20s. Definitely before I turned 21. Yes, 21. And I've seen his progression. To hear this album, like, oh my God, this is you at your best. To know how many people will see what somebody else reported as sales and never hear that project, or never even give it an opportunity, or not listening with an open heart, that hurts. Because I feel like an album like that could save somebody's life. An album like that could save somebody's life. It's called Herbert. An album like that could save somebody's life. Saying the right words in the right way, in the right cadence, over the right beat, at the right time, could bring someone to tears. Could make them feel heard, make them feel seen. But if all they're doing is being exposed to the music that gets the biggest budgets behind it, if all they're doing is being exposed by the music that somebody else gets to choose whether it's important or not, what happens? What happens when those people are the people that go to music for medicine? What do we give them? A song that was made specifically for income, and I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. You do you. It's a business model. You do you. But they never get exposed to it. So I'm going to use my platform in a way that not a lot of people will, because if it ain't about them, they don't want to do the content. That's not what it is. It never was about that. Right? I'm always thinking about how this can be of value to somebody else. And I genuinely appreciate every single one of you. Even if you didn't even leave anything in the chat, like shout out to everybody in here who's chatting. But if you didn't leave anything in the chat, salute. My hat's off for you even being here. Whether or not you believe it, I can feel your energy in all of this, right? I can feel your energy in this. It's important.